Okay, we are a little bit late getting started because we had some technical difficulties, but I am going to call this meeting to order at 6:49 p.m. Welcome everyone to this Township of West Lincoln Council meeting. It's also referred to, since it's a summer meeting, as an all committees meeting. This is the 13th, meeting number 13, Monday, August 14th, and I will first ask you to please stand for the singing of O Canada, tonight performed by Smithville Christian High School. Thank you. So before actually beginning this meeting, I have a few announcements. One is that Councillor William Riley and Councillor Jason Trombetta have provided notice that they will not be able to attend this evening's council meeting. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge that we have our retired Director of Legislative Services, Joanne Shimei, with us this evening. So we're really happy to have Joanne here to provide some support. Thank you, Joanne. Comments from the public for a matter that is on the agenda may be provided in person by attending the meeting and advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of that agenda. For those individuals that are unable to attend the meeting in person, and this is true for this meeting and for any other meetings, you may submit comments for matters that are on the agenda by either A, emailing jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and read into the public record, or by contacting the Clerk's Department to request a Zoom link to attend the meeting virtually. And tonight's council and all committees meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and available on the Township's website by visiting events.westlincoln/meetings. And they'll start the meeting this evening with the land acknowledgement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Darragh, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the regional municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. And next is the opening petition, and Councillor Bradrick. I think you have that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and the community. As trusted servants, may we act wisely and well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So are there any changes in order of items on the agenda, councillors? Okay, and seeing none, the next item on our agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest. And I do have a statement to read that was prepared by our clerk after the last meeting that we had. And it reads as follows. At the last council, all committees meeting, held on July 17th, 2023, Councillors Rayner, Trombetta, and I each declared a conflict of interest for a confidential item with respect to legal matters, Niagara Peninsula Energy Incorporated and Peninsula West Power Incorporated, due to our appointed roles on these boards. Due to recent information shared from our Integrity Commissioner, we have been made aware that since we, as members of council, were appointed to sit on these boards by the Township of West Lincoln Council, we did not, in fact, need to have disclosed a pecuniary interest. With this clarification, all members of council have been able to review the full set of minutes and will be able to participate in the voting of the minutes as a whole during this and any subsequent meetings at which this item may arise. We wanted to ensure that should this item be brought forward at a future committee and/or council meeting, and no conflict is declared at that time, that members of the public are aware of the reasoning behind this decision. So we will move on with the rest of our meeting, and when that time comes, you will see that we are all able to vote on that information. So, under request to address items on the agenda, there can be public comment at council under section 6.7 if there's a specific appointment has been scheduled, or if there's an item included under other business or communications or appointments on the agenda, and it relates to a matter which would normally be dealt with at committee. So is there any member of the public present tonight who wishes to address a specific item on the agenda as permitted by section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw? Okay, and seeing none, we also have no appointments or presentations this evening, and that brings us, Councillor Witteveen, to your remarks this evening. So Regional Councillor Witteveen joins us at our regular council meetings and shares an update on many of the happenings at the region. So Councillor Witteveen, the floor is yours.
Okay, welcome everybody. So, Madam Mayor, Councillor and staff, members of the public, I'd like to start my report by letting you know that the Niagara region will be starting to work through our 2024 budget shortly. The Mayor and myself have attended some pre-budget strategy to understand budget pressures going into 2024. Again, we face similar cost pressures from inflation as we did last year. We understand the burdens to taxpayers, and we have a difficult job in keeping the budget within the 5-year average of CPI, which is 3.7%. And I know that this council will have to make those difficult choices for your budget process as well. So the Mayor and I will have a better understanding of where we land at the region by November this year. Second, there's been much discussion around the automated speed cameras that will be activated here at the end of August and rotated within the region in the designated community safety zones that have met, obviously, the criteria to be selected. To remind everyone, this is a pilot of 4 cameras. Challenges will be on how quickly the court system processes the infractions will have to be monitored. So the big question everyone has on this program is what's the trigger to the infraction? So the explanation was anything over the posted speed limit is not encouraged. But the program is designed to change drivers' behavior, not to be a money grab in which some are led to believe. The vendor that operates the system on behalf of the Niagara region will set the speed in which the vehicle will incur a charge. So, and it is also my understanding that no one will incur points on their license as the fine will be charged to the vehicle. So when the camera is installed and activated, the signs in this area, which will be on on the regional road, 30 road, there will be a change in the sign that will let drivers know that the system is engaged. So there will be some, near the end of the month, there's going to be more communication to the public, letting them know about the program, and it's actually it's starting. So, and at our Public Health and Social Service Committee meeting, much discussion took place around the asylum seekers that have been housed in Niagara Falls as per the federal government's direction. So to date, we have a total of 2,800 individuals that are slowly being integrated into our communities. Many need language assistance before they can be trained to fill vacant work positions throughout Niagara. We have received some funding to offset these costs, but we have not been made whole by the federal government. There are no more new asylum seekers coming, so it will take some time to find homes and employment for these individuals. Senior staff and regional chair continue to lobby our federal representatives to make us whole as we carry out the task. And on the child care front, we are at a 64% capacity level, in which we are still short of around 1,500 spaces here in Niagara. The region is working to increase compensation for the EEC positions and working with the workforce funding to help encourage individuals to take on training and education to fill these much needed spaces. Discussions also took place around looking at home care models that could be licensed to help fill this need. And I'm not sure where we are here in West Lincoln, but I believe that the mayor might be able to add some additional information on what is in the works here in West Lincoln. And I did attend the Chamber's Community Barbecue at the Community Center on July 22nd. We had a great display of our local businesses, and of course, great to see the fire department participating in this community event. And lastly, I wanted to remind everyone of the West Niagara Fair on September the 8th, 9th, and 10th. I believe the mayor and I will be in a contest, yet you'll have to show up to see what contest that may be. She looks as excited as I am. So this is always a wonderful event for family and friends to attend. So thank you for allowing me to update you on my involvement here. If you have any questions on my report, I'd be gladly answer them for you this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Whittabee. So I think it's some kind of a blind-fed pie eating something. Not too thrilling. The one piece I want to add, by the way, is that I understand that the signs, when the speed limits and the posting that's been done comes actually into effect, there's some kind of a green disc or something that's added to those signs to give people sort of a visual heads up that this is in effect at this point in time. So we'll see what happens with that. Does anyone have any questions? Or okay, so we'll start. We'll start with Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to Albert. What is the duration on these? Are they going to rotate them, or they're just there for a certain period, then they go to another municipality? What's the plan?
That is, initially there's 12 locations that have met the criteria, and these 4 cameras will be rotated. Our second location is on Town Line Road, but that won't be till, I believe, springtime when it comes back through a rotation. So there's a notice period of 60 days prior to the camera being installed, and then the camera will be there for 60 days, and then it will be moved to another location that's, and this is how they're being rotated. Interesting enough, there's areas in other municipalities in the region that are like fighting to have these in place because they have some real problem areas of speed. So this is a pilot, so we have to work through the exercise of the pilot before we'll expand on it, but yes, it will only be there temporary, Councillor Rayner.
Go ahead.
Through Madam Mayor to Albert, just further clarification. They're always going to be in West Lincoln, or they're going to rotate to other municipalities and then come back, or will there always be one in West Lincoln?
Not always. The one that's designated on 30 Road will be there for 60 days, then we will not have any in West Lincoln till it comes back for Town Line Road. And it's in that designated community safety zone, which are schools, school areas, to protect our children from, we'll say, drivers that don't want to obey the speed limit.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gichon?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the updates on all of the events going on at the region. I just want to make one point really clear to those that might be listening to this either in our gallery or online. At a previous update, I think you were charged with trying to determine how and what speeds the cameras would start taking effect, and there was some discussion about 10 kilometers per hour, which might be the leeway, which everyone prays for, especially when they pass a policeman with a radar gun in the hand. But what I heard you say today, and I just want to make sure that we make a very good point of that, is that anything over the posted speed limit can be subject to a charge. And the red light cameras don't give it to you the minute you went by, and nobody waves at you except this little light that goes off, and you'll get it in the mail, right? So while you won't get any points to your license, because it may not be you driving, it might be a son, daughter, wife, or husband. But what I did want to clarify was that, because subject to that last meeting, a number of people did ask, is it plus 10 or isn't it? And I think we want to make that real clear, just so that we don't have any misunderstandings, especially me.
Yeah, so if I could interject too, I think that was part of the discussion the last time,
Yes.
but we have had a subsequent meeting where it was made very clear that there's no one at the region who knows what will be set by the company that's doing the setting. So they may set it at 0, no tolerance at all, or they may change that, but we don't know. Certainly people in West Lincoln don't know, and people at the region don't know either, specifically for that reason. It just is
Your Worship, I
arbitrarily
just want to
set.
make sure that today, when the cameras are imminent, that there is a very clear understanding that anything over could be subject, and we'll put that out there for everyone to hear and hope. That
It was a very
abide.
clear answer that even 1 kilometer over the posted speed limit is excessive, so be warned. Okay, anything further for Councillor Woodavine? Okay,
Okay,
thank
thank
you
you.
very much, Albert. Okay, moving on to confirmation of minutes. 9.1 is the council or the all committees meeting from July 17, 2023. And Councillor Chichok, you have that resolution?
I do, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the minutes of the open session portion of July 17th, 2023 regular council meeting of all committees meeting be accepted, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the July 17th regular council meeting and all committees be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please? Councillor Broderick? Okay, so are we prepared to vote? We are prepared to vote online. So councillors, watch for that to come up on your screens. Aha. And that carries. Thank you. 9.2, public meetings under the Planning Act, again, July 17th, 2023. And Councillor Bell, you have that resolution, please?
Got to find it again. Okay. That the minutes of the public meeting held on July 17, 2023, under the Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to 1, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, P. Bud Developments, Inc., South Grimsby Road 5, file number 1701-003, 23 OPA, and 1601-004-23 ZBA, and 2 zoning bylaw amendment, Brad Snipe 700 concession 4 road, file number 1601-005-23 be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor. And someone to second that, please. Councillor Rayner? Okay, and the vote is there for your pleasure. And again, that resolution carries. Thank you. So under number 10, communications, we have several. So 10.1 is Chantel Poliquin, committee member, resignation from the West Lincoln Santa Claus Parade Committee. And Councilor Rayner, you have that, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Boom of myself that the email received on July the 18th, 2023 from Chantel Poliquin advising of her resignation from the West Lincoln Christmas Parade Committee be received with regrets, and that bylaw 2023-03 being the appointment bylaw for boards and committee be amended to remove Chantel Poliquin from Schedule C, West Lincoln Santa Claus Parade Committee.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please. Councilor Bradrick. And the vote is in front of you. And that carries. Okay. 10.2 is again a resignation, this time Sue Langdon, a committee member with the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, or JAAC. And Councilor Bell, you have that one as well, please.
That the email received on July 17th, 2023 from Sue Langdon advising of her resignation from the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, JAAC, be received with regrets, and 2, that Donna Harrington of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee be advised of Sue Langdon's resignation and be requested to address the vacancy of a citizen representative.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please. Councilor Chichok. And again, the vote is in front of you. And that also carries. So we have a few of these things to clean up over the summer. So 10.3 is Deborah Terryberry, board member, removal from the West Lincoln Library Board. And Councilor Bradrick, you have that one.
Yes, moved by myself that the resolution adopted by the West Lincoln Public Library Board at the meeting on July 25th, 2023, regarding the removal of Deborah Terryberry from the Library Board as per Section 13 of the Public Libraries Act be received, and that bylaw 2023-05, being a bylaw for appointments to the West Lincoln Public Library Board, be amended to remove Deborah Terryberry from Schedule A.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please. Councilor Chichok, thank you. And again, the vote is in front of you. And that resolution is carried. So, Councilor Chichok, you drew the winning resolution for the evening. So this information came through Walter Senzik, the NEB board member, Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network. Read the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere request for endorsement. And so, Councilor Chichok, please.
You know, after I offered our treasurer a bonus for writing a good report that was going to be very short further on in the agenda, Your Worship, she promised me that that would take longer to read than it did for her to write. I got, you're right, the short straw on this one. But moved by myself, whereas the Niagara Escarpment Commission from Queenston in the south to Tobermory in the north have been recognized by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, as a World Biosphere since 1990, and whereas the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere provides a range of very positive returns to Ontarians, including but not limited to promoting biodiversity of both flora and fauna, open landscape, productive agriculture, and agritourism, traditional Indigenous knowledge, and a cultural history, ecosystem services, a living library for learning, carbon sequestration, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and whereas the NEB is integral to the protection and enhancement agenda for the Great Lakes, especially since several of Ontario's major ravine systems have their headwaters within the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere that in turn feed into each of Lake Huron, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and Georgian Bay. And whereas oversight of the NEB has successfully transitioned from the Ontario government agency, the Niagara Escarpment Commission, to a citizen-centered, not-for-profit organization, namely the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network, also known as NEBN. And whereas the NEBN has been established as a co-leadership model between Indigenous and non-Indigenous leaders with a key objective of establishing the future direction of the NEB as a model of delivering on the worthy goals of Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as well as demonstrated commitment to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And whereas the NEB has made and continues to demonstrate commitment to partner engagement and collaboration across many sectors and interests, including municipal, environmental, tourism, educational, youth, economic, research, and more. And whereas the NEBN is seeking continuation of the official UNESCO Biosphere designation for the NEB, with the support of those who call the NEB home for work, play, and study. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township of West Lincoln supports the continuation of the UNESCO Biosphere designation for the Niagara Escarpment and for the oversight model that has been established with the NEBN.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We need someone to second that resolution, please. Councillor Bell, thank you. That's the easy part, Councillor Bell. You can just say, I second that. Okay, so the vote is in front of you. Please vote. Well, you know what? What you see is what we've got. So it was a request that came through asking about that. I don't have specific answers. We can talk about it if you wish. Go ahead, Councillor Rayner. That's why there are no questions, because there's no answer.
I was just wondering, Madam Mayor, if you can summarize that in English to just a couple sentences.
Essentially, they're changing a leadership model and a governance model, and they would like us to continue to support that. I would guess that based on all of the whereases, that it now includes a much larger Indigenous portion, and it certainly is paying respect to the Indigenous nature of the people who were here before us, and therefore they're looking to broaden their scope. It also sounds to me, as it probably did to most of you, is that it's moving from a government agency to a governing board. In terms of looking at that, if you look at the part that says transition from the Ontario government agency to a non-for-profit organization. So in a nutshell, that's as good as it gets.
And what precipitated this?
A letter that came asking us to endorse this. I think that they're looking to get endorsement from all of the local municipalities.
That's what I'm gathering
Yeah,
from this.
okay.
Thanks.
Good enough?
Shelley?
Anything further?
No, I just wanted to make sure you pointed out.
Oh, thank you, Councillor. Okay, now we're good to vote, I think. Seeing no others, go ahead.
Sure, why not? Why didn't that?
Okay, and that resolution carries as well. Okay, 10.5 is from Jenny Gallen, West Niagara Agricultural Society, and it's a request for designation of 2023 West Niagara Fair as a community festival. And Mike Rayner, Councillor, you have that resolution, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the correspondence from Jenny Gallen, Administrator of Operations of the West Niagara Agricultural Society, dated July the 20th, 2023, requesting that the 2023 West Niagara Fair be designated as a community festival in order to obtain a special events permit from the Ontario Alcohol and Gaming Commission be received, and that the Council for the Corporation of the Township of West Lincoln hereby designate the 2023 West Niagara Fair as a community festival of municipal significance in accordance with the Liquor License, spelt American, Act of Ontario and the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, which festival is to be held from Friday, September the 8th to and including Sunday, September the 10th, 2023 at the West Niagara Agricultural Center, 7402 Mud Street, Grassy.
Thank you, Councillor. So someone to second that resolution, please. Councillor Chichok, thank you. And I will ask if there are any questions or comments about that.
Standard.
Yeah, it is a standard thing, and certainly they need to have that designation so that they are able to apply for their license, so that's good. Okay, so the vote will come up shortly. Well, it is there. Good. Well done. All right, and that resolution also is carried. Okay, 10.6 is Charlene McCallum, West Lincoln resident, and the request is for West Lincoln Community Center digital sign fees to be waived. And Councillor Bradrick, you have that Resolution?
Yes, moved by myself that the correspondence received from Charlene McCullum regarding a request for fees to be waived for advertisement on the West Lincoln Community Center digital sign dated August 11th, 2023, be received and supported.
Thank you. And someone to second that resolution, please? Councillor Bell, thank you. And again, I will ask for questions or comments regarding this. Councillor Chichok?
Your Worship, usually when resolutions come forward to us, they're put forward to say, be received and it's at the judgment of the council members that how they would be adopted. So I just say that for further into the future, because my question when I read this, and not that I'm against these kinds of things, but there are many, many things that are fundraisers in this community. And once, if anything goes out there, this is asking for 4 days, which is not a problem, but what happens when we have duplicity? And we need to do it for Johnny and Joey and Freddie and Sandra and Sally. I don't want anyone to feel left out. And I would hope that we would have that discussion so that we don't have us supporting it without some jurisdiction over how often, how long, and the length of time. This just came forward and, I read it and said, okay, and then all of a sudden I thought, 4 days?
Well, it's interesting you should do that, because I asked the question as well, because normally this would come to us and say, and, and then we have that discussion. I think the decision and the answer that I got was that we will either receive it and support it or not support it.
In future, I would hope that they would leave that option
You
to
like the
us.
I like the dots.
I like
dots.
I get caught between the dots.
But that was just a decision that was made.
Understood.
As the agenda was put together.
Understood, and I think it's fine, but it leaves more discretion to council. If there's a decision to be made, let's have the ... so we can have the discussion. And to that end, my point on this matter is I would only worry because I know of 2 other things that are in the air right now, equally of issue for young children. And if there's a way that we have to prioritize them or give them all the same sort of opportunity, I just don't want one person to get 4 days and the other ones to be shut out.
Thank you.
And what do we do in the meantime? So
Good.
I'd actually like those answers in the very near future, and I'd like it to be dots.
I don't disagree with the dots. Councillor Bell.
I agree with what Councillor Chichek's saying, and I believe that, excuse me, moving forward until we can get this sorted out, that we freeze this. And let's get this straightened out so that it's equal for everybody.
So are you suggesting some sort of a policy moving forward so
Yes,
that
I'd
we?
like to see something put in place for it.
Okay, so
Hopefully
anything
council will
further?
support it.
Madam CEO, did I see that you looked like you perhaps wanted to weigh in on this?
Just do ...
No, I thank you to Councillor Chichok and to Councillor Bell for raising the issue. This is complicated because the reason why this is before you is because it is it's adverse to the current process. So there's usually a requirement for fees for these types of events. And however, the constituent has asked for the fees to be waived. We don't have a policy right now, but I think that staff is certainly of the same opinion that there needs to be some more rules and context provided to give council. And I think we'll be coming back with a policy to make sure that it is more clear and easier for council to respond to the ...
Okay, so go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Just to clarify, so moving forward, would it be safe to say that if anybody brings any of these forward in the future, they won't be granted until we get a policy in place? Because I can see more coming forward.
Well, there always are some, and there always are people looking, obviously. So, and I certainly appreciate that, Councillor Chichok has raised this issue because things like this have come before us in the past, and it's always a decision of fairness. It really is. So, yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
As you'll notice, the fair, which benefits the entire community, came forward with an ask and allowed us, and we were allowed to either turn it down or not when that benefits the entirety of the community. So I think we offer the same kind of privilege to those that come forward. And I mean absolutely no disregard to the importance of these kind of things. And that's what breaks my heart, is that here we are talking about dots, dashes, and length of time that you can be recognized. But really, in fairness, it really does need to be something that says you can have 1 day, you can have 2 if it's a Tuesday, and you can have 5 if it's a Sunday. I don't care what it is. I just want everybody to play by the same book.
Okay, so moving forward, I think we're pretty much in agreement on that. The decision is how to handle this particular situation, which
I
is
would find it
upcoming,
very
so-
difficult to do it for the 4 days, because that would be setting, then someone will come to us with a precedent.
So then we have a choice then, because it does suggest in the resolution that it be received and supported, then the answer is in how we vote, and the fact that we then defer, or suggest that staff come up with something. And I see our CAO is also waving her finger, so Madam CAO,
Yes.
further remarks, please.
Again, what is being asked of is already against our current process. So anything that you do now could be precedent setting, so beware. You do have a right to defer. I believe our clerk is motioning to me as well. So you can defer and wait for us to come back. And I do understand the sensitivity and the challenge of dealing with a community group in this regard, but I think the idea of fairness is very important.
And I'm just checking, I think the timing of this is that it actually takes place.
Madam Chair, would we be appropriate in the motion on the table would have to be turned down, or a friendly amendment would be, and that the decision be brought back to council once staff have dealt with the policy, which would not be precedent setting?
Yeah, I think that yeah. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
It's also nice to have
Consolation.
No. Yeah, so this is the 15th to the 19th, which is why it's before us today. So it really is time sensitive as well, so.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My suggestion would be that you could refer the matter back to staff to prepare a policy with respect to these types of requests. And then at that point, then this matter could be deferred till that policy is actually in place and a decision made. Or you could turn this down tonight and just leave it at that. Or like I said, you could refer it to staff for a report to deal with requests that come from the public that aren't community-based, more individual-based.
Thank
and
you.
then deal with it, and then deal with this matter. I know it'll be after the fact that you would have that decision made, but I would think that they would be pleased if, some consideration was given.
Thank you. Councillor Chichok, back to you.
I see that there's a member of the public that may want to address council, and I think that opportunity has been missed unless we concede that it would be allowed. But I really, there was a part of me when I read this said, I wonder how many people read those signs. And then there was a part of me that said, but if it's there, it looks like we're endorsing it. We, the community, the municipality, are endorsing the events that go on it. Because we don't charge, well, we do charge. So anybody can put anything up as long as it met criteria that was not harmful or propaganda or whatever.
And the more you speak, the more it says we need a policy.
Exactly my point. And I wish no harm to anyone, and I have to reinforce that because I struggled with this when I read the agenda, and I wished that it had just said received, which would have allowed us in a very humane way to deal with the item until there was a policy. I would, if we had a policy, if we were not worried about precedent, if we were not worried about the understanding of what being on one of our town's signs means, and if we were not worried about what allowing someone to put their material there without a fee, I'd be 100% free to vote in favor of this. But because of those things, I worry about the implications it will have for the entire community, and would we be doing a wrong in favor of a right? So I know that there are other councillors wishing to put the motion forward, and I leave it with the clerk to ask how we should handle this appropriately. But I really do wish that we had not in any way shown that we supported or not supported this.
Exactly, because the fact that it says supported means we're not in support when we turn it down or if we turn it down. And in actual fact, you're right, it hasn't given us an opportunity to discuss it thoroughly. So to you, Mr. Clerk, we have to figure out how we're going to get this back to staff for a policy to be put in place, so.
So hopefully this is on, and Joanne can correct me if I'm wrong, but we can, based on the timeline provided and that we won't have a meeting to be able to come back and actually address it, we could turn it down at this time and then come back with a policy if we don't want to do that, considering the will of council. I don't see a timeline in which we could return back in time with a policy in place to actually go and do it, so we can, unfortunately at this time, maybe turn it down, just because a referral won't be able to be in time to have the event go on with the sign being in place as well.
Joanne, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Again, I see this as a couple of options that are available to council to make this decision. One would be to refer it back to staff for report and recommendation as it relates to a policy that would address individual requests for waiving of fees of the digital sign. The requests could also include the fact that this matter be deferred until that policy is prepared, and that then consideration could be given on behalf of this request. If, again, you can split those up, or you could turn this request down and still have another resolution that would actually send it back to staff to prepare a policy. So I see it as a couple of options: referral for a policy, to also include this deferral of the decision on this request, or you could just receive this request tonight, so remove the words "and support it" and leave it at that, and then have another resolution that would refer the matter back to staff for report and recommendation as it relates to a policy.
Okay. So Councillor Bell, you have something you want to say?
What Joanne is saying is, I believe is correct. I think that's the way this council needs to go, is what she's saying is to turn it down tonight and then bring it back when we got a policy in place for it.
So further to that, we actually could take out the part we don't like, the "and supported,"
Yeah,
and just receive it tonight
exactly.
as the first part, and then refer it back to staff for, to come back at a future date.
I would suggest that the resolution could be just a referral, so you would refer this back to staff to prepare a policy, and that this request be deferred until that policy has been prepared, and that consideration would be given at that time when the policy comes back. So it's kind of a deferral referral.
It certainly is. I know, I've written deferred before.
Yeah, it could be, you could use the referred back to staff for policy, and that this matter be addressed following the preparation of the policy and council's consideration of the policy before making that decision on the request to waive the fees.
Okay, so recognizing that this garage sale to raise funds is before we would ever have a policy come back, that doesn't mean that we couldn't still. Oh, well, then go ahead, Councillor, I'll let you do.
We're having a technology problem, Your Worship, and we're just going to take a moment.
Oh, dear, okay.
Unless, do you know the dates of the
The dates are, the dates are in the original ask.
I know.
So Tuesday, August 15th, the garage sale's on that weekend, I presume, until the 19th, which is the event date, yes, so the 19th, next Saturday. So it's coming tonight for something that is happening on Saturday of this week.
So we're already in a tight timeline, but the fact that it it is being asked for from the 15th of August to the 19th for the event to be acknowledged and advertised within the community. We're not saying that the garage sale that is in support of the request from Charlene McCallum for a young girl with suffering from autism.
A boy.
I'm sorry, it's a boy.
3-year-old Wyatt.
Yes.
Wyatt.
Wyatt, sorry, I'm not dealing with the entire motion or report. It's good to hear members of the public supporting and endorsing opportunities to help individuals and especially children in this community. And we congratulate and applaud those people that have collected materials to be sold in support of the work that is to be done, or the monies to be raised to support that family. But the request has come at a time where it's very difficult for us to deal with this as a council, but if we hope that the community still can go out and with, as they do with all fundraising activities for all children, all events, all types of functions within the community, that they pay attention to the signs and signage and other advertising for the event from the 11th to the 19th, or until the 19th, 15th to the 19th, I guess it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I would support Councillor Bell's motion if he is the one that is making the deferral.
Okay, well, we have first of all, moved by Councillor Braddock and seconded by Councillor Bell, that the correspondence received from Charlene McCallum regarding a request for fees to be waived for the advertisement of West Lincoln Community Centre digital sign dated August 11th be received, period, right? So we're taking out, and in future things, we will ask staff to not make that judgment, that we prefer to have that discussion first. And then the second portion of that is that this be referred back to staff to prepare a policy regarding
Fee waiving and duration.
Regarding the West Lincoln Community Center
digital sign. That would be enough, and then we don't have to talk about whether it's fee waiving or for however many days. That will be part of whatever comes back to us, right? So.
Excuse me.
Okay, so we actually have a Part A and a Part B.
So if I can just read what I have written here, so it's be received and that this request be referred back to staff until staff can create a policy regulating digital sign advertisements.
Does that work for everybody? Okay, so I think then, we're ready?
How about all municipal signage? Because you may have 3 someday. He said 2.
Do you want to say all, and just change it to all municipal sign?
That's better.
And that way, the policy will cover anything in the future as well? Okay. So having had, before we get our vote and while it's getting ready, having had this big discussion about all of this and the fact that we're all feeling a little bit caught in the middle, I would just like to remind members of council and members of the public who might watch this of the importance of this event that is going on next week, and for them to watch for it on social media and attend if possible and support this worthwhile cause. Unfortunately, we aren't able to do that at this point in time, but maybe moving forward, we will have a policy that allows for such things to be done. Okay. So if you look at the new resolution that the correspondence received from Charlene McCallum regarding a request for fees to be waived for advertisement on the West Lincoln Community Center digital sign dated August 11th be received, and that this request be referred back to staff until staff can create a policy regulating all municipal signs. Everybody's good with that? Okay, go ahead and vote then. Okay, and that resolution is carried. Okay. And that takes us to item number 11, which is the mayor's remarks. And these remarks encompass the time since our last meeting on July the 17th. On the morning of Wednesday, July 19th, I was happy to work behind the counter at our local Tim Hortons in support of their very successful Camp Day. I also attended on that same date a fantastic evening of music in the park at our local band shell at the community center. There were 2 regional council meetings on July 20th, one scheduled from 4 to 6 o'clock and the other to begin at 6:30, both of which I attended. On the evening of July 21st, John and I attended the Niagara Dairy Farmers Dinner at the Dairy, which proved to be both enjoyable and educational for all ages. Although I was on vacation and missed the West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce Community Barbecue on Saturday, July 22nd, I understand that it was quite successful and was enjoyed by those who were in attendance. Councillor Witteveen attended the event, as he often does. However, I did specifically ask that he attend, as I could not be there, and so I would like to publicly thank him for doing so. As our council liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, Councillor Chichok was very involved in the planning of this event, and so I also thank her for her work on helping to pull this community event together. The first of a long series of regional budget meetings took place on Thursday, July 27th, which I attended virtually from New Hampshire. One very good result of having to find our way to continue to do both municipal and regional work during the pandemic years is the fact that meetings are now hybrid and thus allowed, if there is appropriate connectivity, for participation in important meetings while on vacation. During the morning of August 2nd, the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council visited as planned the historic archives in the downstairs area of our train station. The youth were both careful and engaged in viewing and handling, when possible, the various artifacts on display. They were keenly interested in the answers to their questions as the knowledgeable volunteers of the West Lincoln Historical Society responded. It was a great walking outing on a warm summer morning. Thus, an added bonus was our enjoyable stop for an ice cream cone at Ola Amigos on our walk back to the township offices. I would just say I didn't know they had ice cream, but the kids all did. So therefore, we stopped, and the mayor bought. Music on the evening of August 2nd, Music in the Park, was performed by the band British Invasion, who held the attention of a very engaged audience for close to 2 hours. There were hands clapping, toes tapping, and even some dancing to the music of the Beatles, Herman's Hermits, the Dave Clark Five, and several other bands of that same era. There is one more Music in the Park event left in the Summer of 23 series. It will be taking place this upcoming Wednesday, August 16th, beginning at 7 p.m. Staff have done an excellent job in securing a great variety of bands for this series of events. Thank you to our recreation staff, and special thanks to the various businesses who sponsored this series, including McIntyre Electric, Premier Equipment, Alexander's Fudge, Meester Insurance, Soundbox Productions, Niagara Peninsula Energy Inc., and Team Swayze Real Estate. We value your support of these opportunities for our residents to gather socially. All of these evenings of fun and musical entertainment have been well supported by our residents. And I will just add, usually 120 to 140, 150 people sitting in the park for those evenings. Movies in the Park this past Friday evening was another good opportunity for families to enjoy a family-oriented movie on the large screen, with snacks of popcorn, chips, and various drinks being provided, as always, by the Kiwanis Club of West Lincoln for any size donation. The last movie night of the Summer of 23 season will take place on Friday, August 25th, rain or shine. They now know how easy it is to move it inside if the weather is threatening. August 20th to 23rd, CAO Hendry, Councillors Riley and Chichok, and myself will be attending the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Conference, otherwise known as AMO, where we will have the opportunity to bring some of our local West Lincoln concerns to the attention of various provincial ministers, deputy ministers, and our parliamentary assistants through previously scheduled delegations. Regional Councillor Witteveen and I, together with Regional Chair Bradley, other mayors and regional councillors and senior staff, will also be taking part in similarly scheduled regional delegations in regard to larger regional government interests and/or concerns. This AMO conference also allows for hands-on trade show, many educational sessions, and various networking opportunities. It is important that West Lincoln is a visible presence at such professional gatherings. And that's the end of my remarks for this evening. So moving on to the next thing on the agenda, after big long ones, we will go to Director of Planning and Building. I'm now at, no, I'm not. I'm at 15.4, I think. Did I miss one without changing my pages? Probably. Oh, there are. Gotcha. Thank you. So I did mess up my pages. I apologize. I've got it. Okay, so report of committee, and there are none. And then there is also not a reconsideration nor a modus to rescind for tonight. Other business, a consent agenda. So all items listed below are considered to be routine and non-controversial and can be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. So Councillor Bell, now that I'm organized again, you have that resolution, please.
Items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 be and are hereby received for information with exceptions of item, and there is none. 1, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, minutes of July 13th, 23. West Lincoln Public Library Board minutes, June 13th, 2023. Memorandum 23, tree planting update and authority to sign agreement with MPCA. Information report T19 2023, financial update of July 31st, 23. Information report WLFD-12 2023, monthly update, July 23.
Thank you. And someone to second, please. Councillor Rayner, thank you. All right, so since there's no discussion on these items, your vote is in front of you. And that carries as well. Thank you. Okay, 15.2 is the tabled item, which remains tabled for this evening. And now we're at 15.3, Director of Finance and Treasurer Donna DeFilippis, re-recommendation report T-20-2023, RBC Securities Bank Account. And Councillor Chichok, you have that resolution, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moved by myself that the recommendation report T-20-2023 dated August 14th, 2023 regarding the RBC Securities Bank Account be received, and that Council authorize staff to open and operate an account with RBC Securities, and that Council authorize the following signing authorities on the RBC Securities account, being D. Philippus, Director of Finance and Treasurer, and K. Hall, Manager of Finance and Deputy Treasurer.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please. Councillor Braderick. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Councillor Braderick.
I do have just one question for my own clarity through you, Mayor Ganan, to, I believe, the CAO. I noted that there's 2 signing authorities, and I assume that's always the way on this type of account. And what is the backup plan if there was not an available 2 people to sign?
So thank you very much for that question, Councillor Braderick. Yes, there is always 2. And we always have and I will ask our director to verify this, but we always have a process in place with backups and assigned backups. Is there anything different than that, Donna?
Through you, Mayor Ganan, to Councillor Braderick. You raise a very good question. On our main bank account, we have at least 4 signing officers. There always has to be 2.
Right.
That main bank account is designed that way because a lot of activity flows through it, as you could imagine. An investment account does not have a lot of activity. It's usually not like critical, time sensitive. It's these investments we can plan. We know when there's renewals, we know when we're going to purchase, so we can ensure that we're both always available to sign off on these. But definitely on the main bank account, there's a lot of people that can sign off.
So additional question through you, Mayor, to the director. It requires 2 signatures on those types of accounts?
Through you, Mayor Ganan, to Councillor Braderick, all the accounts the township has requires 2 signatures.
Thank you. I just wonder for future consideration and some succession planning that it may be, something thoughtful to think about, adding, a third or 4 people to every single account in the event that there's not the 2 people available for whatever reason. That's just a general comment for the CAO, I guess, for future consideration. Or is that something that we should bring forward for discussion?
I think that we can consider that. We'll discuss that with staff. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you fine then?
No, I'm good now,
Okay.
unless somebody else has a further comment
Okay,
about that.
Councillor Chichok.
Councillor Bradrick has struck a chord in my head, of which there are not many. But, Madam Mayor, through to the Finance Director, is there now a series of backup paper that are signed off by yourself, the CAO, the mayor, et cetera, bylaws passed by council that support whatever action is going to be taken on a bank account? And I'm talking about investment accounts, because I'm just understanding, I think Councillor Braddock makes a great point, but I also want to make sure that everyone understands that on our main bank account, there's all kinds of papers, the sign off of the supervisor of payroll, et cetera, on anything that's going on. But if this one's going to be less frequently used, there'd still be a paper trail of signatures on the approval of, for instance, taking out an investment or a borrowing that would go through this kind of an account. And that would be your backup. There'd be lots of signatures before they got to the final two. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Ganan, to Councillor Chichok, I'll walk you through how these usually happen. For the Meridian bank account and the CIBC bank account, those have multiple signing authority because we keep cash in those accounts, and funds can get transferred to and from. For the investment accounts, for this one in particular, the RBC one, in order to put funds into that account, it would have to come from one of our main accounts. If I have a request to transfer funds from one account to the other, the CAO signs off on those requests. I just don't transfer funds from one account to the other. However, when an investment becomes due and the funds are already there, I make that decision, and it doesn't go to other people, and that's the truth.
Through you, I don't want to leave that one hanging in the wind. Our finances and our authorities, or levels of authority, are also periodically reviewed by our external auditors to ensure that there's sufficient control so that Ms. DeFilippis isn't going to sign anything that she shouldn't.
We've just been through an audit, a very thorough audit, so I think we're quite aware of that, but thank you for making the public also aware of that. Councillor Bradrick,
If I could just interject quickly and a comment. My original comments were really not anything to do with, the security of it. It was more about the succession planning and looking at if the director, did win the 649 on Saturday, and we weren't left, holding the bag and not a second signing officer. So that was my reasons for the ask.
thank you for the clarification. Go
I,
ahead, Madam CAO.
maybe not succession planning, but contingency planning.
Okay, so we're all good? Everybody's good with that now? Okay, I think we're ready then for the vote. Thank you. Okay, and that resolution is carried, and that takes us then to 15.4. Acting Manager of Operations, Trey Benish, and Director of Public Works and Recreation, Mike DePaula, recommendation report number PW-23-2023, hot mix spot repair tender authorization. And Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the recommendation report PW-23-2023 read 2023 hot mix spot repair tender authorization dated August the 14th, 2023 be received, and that council accept the tender submission by Circle P Paving, Inc. for the paving of spot repairs in the amount of $224,900 plus HST, and that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter an agreement with Circle P Paving, Inc.
Thank you. Someone to second that, please? Councillor Chichok? Are there any questions or comments on this? Councillor Rayner?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sure the director would agree. we have used these people many times in the past, and I've always been impressed with their work, and I'm very pleased to see that they're back again. Their work is outstanding, and at least in my area, anything they've ever repaired has never had to been repaired again. It's done right the first time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Broderick?
Yes, one quick question through your mayor to the director. I'm sorry if I missed this in your report, but wondered about the time frame of when this work is done over.
Through the mayor, Councillor Broderick, once this tender is approved, we'll authorize the work, and work will commence in September and probably carry through over the next couple of months, September, October, mid-November, up until mid-November.
And so I was just curious if there's any dollars that are ever held back for the winter potholes that we know always happen.
I didn't quite understand the question, if there's money held back for potholes?
Yeah, I know that you probably
Yeah.
have your scope of work already assigned.
Yeah.
That's how you created the tender. But what about future work that has to be perhaps done because of the winter weather? Is that
Yeah, that's
done in
covered,
the-
that's covered in other operating accounts. Yeah, this is just for our annual asphalt trench repair or spot repair.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you're referring to is covered in any of our other operating accounts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further? All right, seeing nothing more, please vote. Okay, that resolution is carried. Moving us to 15.5, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble and Manager of Planning Dave Hayworth. Recommendation Report PD-40-2023, Zoning Bylaw Amendment, 5623 20 Mile Road, file number 1601-01-23. And Councillor Bell, you have that resolution, please?
Yes, I do. Moved by myself, the recommendation report PD 40-2023 regarding zoning bylaw amendment, 5623 20 Mile Road, file number 1601-01-23, dated August 14th, 2023, be approved in accordance with the attached amending bylaw, and 2, that no further public meeting is required for the consideration of this bylaw in accordance with Section 3417 of the Planning Act.
Thank you, and someone to second that, please? Councillor Broderick? Are there any questions or comments on this? Councillor Chichok?
Madam Mayor, through you to the planning staff, there's been a number of compromises made on this property, and there has been several comments made, brought to my attention by members of the community in that area, worried about the fact that the compromises were, in their mind, significant. In our staff's mind, have we mitigated all of the issues that could come to the fore with regard to this property that could cause damage through either water waste or any kind of additional traffic that cannot, and parking that cannot be attenuated on the property itself?
Through Mayor Ganan to Councillor Chichuk. So we had the public meeting on this in May, and it's taken some time to get here, partly because the site plan's been rearranged because of the region's road widening request. So the parking, the one thing we had to do was double check the septic system, and that's been reviewed a couple of different times, so I want to make note of that. And the parking layout on the site plan meets the bylaw requirements. It will have to be adjusted slightly for the final site plan, but we're just talking like very minor little adjustment for the final site plan. We had touched base with the applicant's planning consultant about the operation of the site, and all the liquids and fluids are going to be dealt with by the MOE requirements. They will be dealt with inside the building, and brought out just when it has to be removed. Tire storage is going to be inside, and that will be a requirement of the site plan agreement, and if you notice in the draft bylaw, it's a requirement in the bylaw as well. So lighting and different factors like that, storm drainage, will be dealt with at the site plan agreement stage. A couple of factors, I guess, to point out. I know council had some concerns and questions about the property and the operation last time it was at the public meeting. So we did put the line in there that if council feels they have concerns, they can request or look into random bylaw enforcement checks. So want to make note of that. Also, normally the site plan agreement is approved by the Director of Planning and Building, and it's internal. If council had real concerns, they could request it to come forward to them so they could have a look at it as well. So I just wanted to mention those points.
Thank you for that. And Madam Mayor, one other question, and that is that this is, the tire storage will be inside. And having read the report and sat through the public meeting and understanding that this is an agricultural related tire situation where, unfortunately, those tires are very large. You don't pick them up in one arm or even with both. You use a forklift or a tractor and special machinery. And some of what it is that agricultural machines require are big, heavy. I'll consider them somewhat ugly, but they're necessary in a community. And I think that our staff have done a very good job at minimizing any kind of future impact, but allow a resident who wants to put out a business that will aid and give opportunity for local purchases of tires. I know that we've had to leave the community, even the region sometimes, to buy tires for some of the equipment we own. So that's not condoning the fact that I want you to be bad on the site. I just want you to do it right. But I think that we have to also pay attention to the fact that if we meet all of the criteria and the willingness of the operator to do that, we sometimes get things that help the farming community, the agricultural community. So thank you for the work. Thank you for the commitment to the considerations that were put into the original report. But there are lots of eyes when new places open, so not necessarily mine, but they're out there, so be wary.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments? So I have one, actually, in terms of just questioning about the building. And so, Mr. Rivers, I don't know if you, on behalf of your client, is able to sort of talk about that building. I think that Councillor Chichok raised a really good point in terms of the ability to actually house indoors tires of that size. Has that been considered in any of the design work you've done, sir, with your client? Yeah, please come forward. You know there's a chair waiting for you and a microphone as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. No, the detailed design work hasn't been done yet, but we have certainly looked at the area within the building that would be able to accommodate the tires. And, you know, it's limited in the size and area that can actually have tires in it, and the size of the tires is certainly going to limit the number that are going to be there.
Okay, so your client is well prepared in terms of looking at that. I see a nodding head, so that's good. Okay, and so do we also have any idea about how long this lot will sit, provided if this is passed tonight and we don't need to have another meeting? Do we know anything about a time frame for when this building is proposed to be built?
I actually spoke with the client about that recently, and he can probably confirm as well. Initially, it was thought that there would be some time between the approval of the bylaw and site plan control approval and the erection of the building. But the business is doing well, and it probably required the building at a fairly early date.
Okay, and are there plans to deal with the tires until the time that the building is built?
Yes, there are. The tires will not be stored on site until the building is there. There will be no on-site storage whatsoever.
Okay. So I've read that in your report, that the tires will not be there. I trust that that's so. However, I am going to suggest that this council follow through on the recommendation from staff that we do ask our staff to allow for random checks, bylaw checks moving forward. It's a little bit of once bitten, twice shy, and I think that with the apprehension from various members of the public that came forward before, we would be remiss in our duties if we didn't ask our staff to follow through. That is a little bit contrary to the normal way that we would deal with bylaw infractions. It's a complaint driven, but we don't want to have the neighbors calling to complain about this. So I think that perhaps our approach will be to look at having those random things automatically done to ensure that we don't have to rely on
Madam Chair, if I could
neighbors.
put words in my client's mouth, they'd be quite comfortable and happy with that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. Anything further from anyone? Okay, so anything further, staff, you've heard that we would love for you to have bylaw enforcement do random checks to make sure that we don't have to deal with complaints about this issue.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to confirm, as long as that appears as part of the minutes, I think that gives me enough direction.
Thank you. Good. Okay. Okay, then we are ready to vote on this. And that resolution carries. Okay, so moving on then to the next item, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, and Manager of Planning, Dave Hayworth. Recommendation Report PD-41-2023, the application for zoning bylaw amendment, file number 1601-004-23, P-Bud Developments, Inc. And Councillor Bradrick, you have that resolution?
Yes, moved by myself, that recommendation report PD-41-2023 regarding application for zoning bylaw amendment, file number 1601-004-23, P-Bud Developments, Inc., dated August 14th, 2023, be received, and 2, the application for zoning bylaw amendment 1601-004-23, submitted by P-Bud Developments, Inc., be approved in accordance with the attached amending bylaw, and 3, that no further public meeting is required for the consideration of this bylaw in accordance with Section 34(17) of the Planning Act.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please? Councillor Bell? Okay. Are there any questions or comments on this file? Okay. Nobody has a question? Nobody has a comment? Okay. Moving on then to the vote. And that resolution is carried. And that takes us to CAO Bev Hendry.
Yes.
Re-employee professional accomplishments. Take it away, Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I get to talk about two employee professional accomplishments, and the first is Cherie Garoon Athen, who is our GIS and Asset Management Coordinator. And Cherie has just completed her the certificate of completion, the role of the GIS being the Geographic Information Services in Workflow and Asset Management through Seneca College. And I can tell you that she's also figuring out practical solutions and practical ways to employ this knowledge within the workplace, which is really wonderful. Second person is Cassandra Carey, who is our new Human Resources Coordinator, and she has completed the Joint Health and Safety Committee certification under the Occupational Safety Group. And this is an area that we really wanted to make sure that we had revisited. I think that we were not doing as much as we could, and with the creation of this new Human Resources Coordinator position, the responsibility for ensuring that all of our Joint Health and Safety Committee requirements are being met or have gone through the HR coordinator. So she has stepped up, taken the course, and is rolling out the the new committee and the requirements to ensure that all that work gets done. So we are in good shape as a result of the work of our two staff that have taken the initiative to do those things. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Congratulations to both of them. That's always good to see. I look forward to the reports that you have each time and telling us how things are going with our staff, so that's wonderful. Any further comments that anybody had at that regard? Okay. So, Councillor Rayner, you have a topic for discussion that you wish to bring up. It just says capital funding for hospitals within the Niagara region and for discussion. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, I always watch the news on Channel 11 at 6 o'clock other than Monday nights. Every once in a while I get pulled away on Monday nights. But watching the news a couple of weeks ago, I seen a whole bunch of officials, including the mayor of Niagara Falls with a shovel in his hand, and our fearless leader in Toronto who doesn't respect agricultural land there with him. And they were announcing the $3.6 billion brand new hospital in Niagara Falls. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I don't recall much about this in the past. I'm dealing with the hospital in Grimsby, West Lincoln, and I remember all the things that they went through. It was just year after year after year of fundraising. We used to have a big thermometer down on the front lawn and the goal and what we could reach. We used to have free parking. They took that away. They did everything they could to nickel and dime to get as much money as they could. And what's left, we have to divvy up among the three municipalities of Lincoln, Grimsby, and West Lincoln, and kick in a number of millions of dollars from the taxpayers. And the project costs roughly, I think, around $365 million. And then I'm looking at Niagara Falls, and I'm thinking, all right, our population is about 15,000. Theirs is 94,000. They had the leader of the opposition there just a couple weeks ago saying that the homes in Niagara Falls are shacks. And I'm thinking, well, I don't recall any fundraising from Niagara Falls people. I didn't hear about it, and I'm sure Mayor Diodati would have made sure it's front and center because he loves being on TV. And I have spoken to him in the past about other things. And I'm thinking, how in the heck are they affording that if they're using the same formula that was used to determine how much the three municipalities for a 1/10 the size hospital is going to cost us here? So what I would like to ask council is if we could ask to have a report put together by staff to see what the formula was in order to justify $3.6 billion in Niagara Falls, which has a lot of problems, and therefore determine if the formula that was used to justify $3.6 billion is equal to the formula that was used for the $365 million of the hospital here, and what the contribution was for the taxpayers of Niagara Falls in order for this to go through. Like I said, I didn't hear anything about fundraising. I don't know anything. All of a sudden, bang, they get something 10 times the size of ours. And where in the heck did they come up with this kind of money in an area that Niagara Falls is not the wealthiest? It's not Oakville. You know, I have a son-in-law who's a paramedic, and he tells me lots of times he takes the same overdose person to the hospital twice in the same shift. So, I mean, they've got their problems down there, but all of a sudden these people who live in these so-called shacks that the leader of the opposition said has got to come up with a vast amount of money to support a $3.6 billion project. How in the heck can they do it? Or is there other things that were done through Mr. Diodati, who may have a lot of connections, in order to get the financial support?
Just be careful about some of the things that you're saying, please.
I just want to know what formula was used and what burden was put on the taxpayers. And it is the same formula used for us here, and are we treated with the same thing? Because I can't see how they can afford that.
I will just give you some answers. So very obviously, each of the hospital bills, whether it was the St. Catherine's Hospital that was built a few years back, or our West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, or the new hospital that won't be built yet for several years because shovels in the ground, as you know, take a long, long time. The portion for the hospital that they're responsible for, the actual hospital, and I will take from my notes, 10% of eligible construction costs of the new build, plus 100% of the costs associated with the purchase of new and replaced furniture, fixtures, and equipment, including parking lots, are what each of the local shares are responsible for. So on this $3.6 billion project, with the inflationary costs built in and moving forward to the time when it's built, because they've just hired and just got started. They have a local share of $44.5 million. That's kind of what they need to come up with. When we were looking for ours, our hospital, of course, is not nearly as grandiose and as large, and it doesn't encompass all of the same departments and divisions as what that new hospital will need. But, our portion that we received from the region was $12.6 million. That's what we asked for. That's what we got. And the region sort of kicked into our local share, and then the 3 municipalities have to do the rest to make, bring up that amount. So the rules are the same for each one. The cost of the hospital bills, unfortunately, are not the same. Our ask, when it came time to do West Lincoln Memorial, was based on what St. Catherine's received when they were given a portion for their local share from the region. And so the numbers are huge, and I certainly get what you're coming from. But the expectations are the same in terms of percentages. And so the region obviously will be giving a bigger share, percentage-wise, to the South Niagara Hospital when it's actually built. So yes, we're doing that partially through our tax dollars as well, just as other people in other areas gave to ours. So it's not a simple thing, and it's not something that our staff would be able to come up with an answer to. It's a very complicated system, but the overall expectation of what this local share is, although I will state firmly, do not agree with. I think for the government to build a hospital that doesn't include any equipment or beds or whatever is almost ludicrous. But the bottom line is that is how things are being done these days. And it's not changed in the years since our hospital was built.
Fine. Madam Mayor, my thought on this is the building in Niagara Falls is 10 times the cost of the building in West Lincoln. Theoretically, the cost to the taxpayers in Niagara Falls would be 10 times more than the cost for us here, if everything is played equal. If they wanted to build a $365 million one and be happy with that, like we are here, then status quo. But since you wanted something grandiose, 10 times the size of what we're getting, then obviously the tax burden to the people of Niagara Falls should be dramatically more. I don't know how in the heck they're going to afford it, because it's a hard go for us to be able to pay for ours here. Yeah. I would like to know if that indeed is the case, or somehow, some way, they're paying the same or less than we are, and we're only getting 1/10 of what they're getting. I just want it to be fair, using the same rules. They got 10 times the size building, so theoretically, they've got a heck of a tax burden, a lot more than us, because they're getting a lot more. Is that true? That's all I want to know.
No, because the hospitals are not apples to apples, but Councillor Chichok wants to weigh in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and having preceded you on the hospital board, we made decisions back before the hospital was finally given its nod of approval. We were required to think about how we would spend our future in West Niagara. And we looked at options on what it was we were going to do. And the affiliation of West Niagara, because of its geographic location, said we would be better served if we turned to the west to look at the hospitals in Hamilton, who, we were very fortunate, accepted that burden. And the province, too, weighed in as we asked for that affiliation rather than to continue to the east with the new St. Catherine's Hospital and anything else that's going on down there. Now, look, in Ontario, anyone who wants to go to any hospital walks in, they have their health card, if they have one, and they are provided with service. But in fact, where our doctors here in West Lincoln or Grimsby or Lincoln would send their patients is preeminently into Hamilton, where some of the finest research and science and hospitals are. Jovansky Cancer Center, McMaster Children's Hospital, the General Hospital, which is burns, brains, and hearts. All of those hospitals and every cent that has been given through the philanthropy of people in the West benefits everyone in West Lincoln. So when you ask that, the place, and I had the great benefit of working with the CCACs and the LHINs when they were first being evolved. And there are numbers that they could get us that are far more accurate, that talk about the dollars per capita that are put into the pot for everyone. And if you want to get that from the proper source where the evaluations were done, I can tell you that it's not us that are the losers, and it's not Niagara Falls. It is people closer into Toronto, and we can get those numbers, which would be much more accurate, and save our staff from doing the kinds of number crunching that may not be accurate. But those numbers exist in this province. They're known by this province. They're known because of the immigration responsibilities, the fact that immigrants have senior citizens as well as young people and their children in need for maternal child, as well as senior citizens with age-related illnesses are burdening the hospital systems. They're all there. And I really think that if we were to look at the fact that within a very short drive, both the hospital board that you sit on and the one that I sat on and the one that many other people sat on, they made very wise decisions to affiliate with a group of hospitals that were doing their own capital campaigns and were putting on major additions. And by the sheer generosity of the Mr. and Mrs. Jurvansky, we were offered extensions to a number of our hospitals in Hamilton that include us. So I only say that because I've sat through that we've been very fortunate. The hospital in Niagara Falls will get money, but it will not build a hospital that is 10 times greater than the resources we have. And I'd hate to think that we think we are unjustly unserved. So.
And I think the bottom line is West Lincoln Memorial Hospital was looking to supply quick service, to be able to be that place, that hospital that was close by. And of course, you mentioned already the maternal child and health. I mean, those services are sort of the close to home services that were felt to be most in need. The hospital that we are having built for us is marvelous, but it doesn't compare. It's not meant to compare. You're absolutely right. It's meant Hamilton Health Sciences.
It's a triage center.
Yeah. They have the experts. So I'm just going to go to the other side and see if there's anything, Councillor Bradrick, you want to add to this discussion, or Councillor Bell?
My only comment would be, and I'm certainly not an expert and have not sat on the hospital boards as Councillor Chichuk has, but I do know that there's a lot of pressures in that side of Niagara with the closing of some of their urgent cares. So I would assume that some of that pressure will be picked up by this new build. But again, not being an expert, that probably has something to do with the bigger picture. And also just some brief research shows some large donations from some very rich individuals that have greatly supported the campaign and that they have been actively pursuing.
Thank you. Their local share is being well supported by a lot of local people. Thank you. Councillor Rayner.
Madam Mayor, through the Director of Finance, what is our financial commitment? I believe we have $1.25 million that we've had in the bank for the longest time, if I'm not mistaken, when I first started years ago. I thought it was $5 or $7 million, and it's not a debenture, it's a levy. Is that not correct?
Through you, Mayor Ganan, to Councillor Rayner, I was just looking that up. If you can just give me one moment. So the township's overall commitment towards the West Lincoln build is estimated at $4.5 million. As you recall, previous councils had approved transfers to reserves, which provided a reserve for the hospital of $1.25 million. That was right. So the remaining $3.274 million, we are increasing the levy each year. The reason we're increasing the levy each year is that when the funds are required, we will be issuing a debenture. And the money we are increasing our levy by will be paying off the debenture each year. So there will ultimately be a debenture. And
Thank
if
you,
I
Director.
may,
Yeah, go ahead.
Councillor Rayner, you talked about the impact to the taxpayers of Niagara Falls compared to West Lincoln. And I just looked at Niagara Falls' budget. Their property tax is $83 million, and that's because of their assessment base. So although perhaps there could be pockets of Niagara Falls you drive through, you may think, you know, they don't have a strong assessment base, they do. Our property tax isn't close to $83 million. So the hospital is costing more, there may be more requirement at the local level, but they have a larger tax base to collect it off of.
Yeah, they have 94,000 people, we only have 15.
And they have a high assessment base because they have a lot of commercial.
A lot of commercial, a lot of industry, and more income.
So again, I just wanted the comparison of have they done I don't even have heard anything about it, but we are a little ways away. Have they done it for years like we've had to do? Try to get every penny we could? What have they done in the past to justify, because they're getting a massive amount of a building and the amount of money, and is the proportion that the taxpayers of Niagara Falls have to pay equated to what we would have to pay for here for what we're paying for $365 million? In other words, is their taxes gone up considerably if the formula is the same for both? If you want something bigger, then you're going to pay more for it. It only makes sense. They're 10 times the size, so theoretically, the tax burden and the assessment is going to be awful that they're going to end up getting.
So
if they did that, unless somebody else from the government is offsetting that, so that Niagara Falls taxpayers aren't on the hook for it. I don't know. I just wanted the formula to be the same because they're getting so much more than us, and yet are they actually paying for it? And how come they get the freebie? And I understand what Councilor Chichuk said. We're close to Hamilton. We've got all the big hospitals down there. But by the same token, it's still got to come from somewhere.
It does, and perhaps they have figured out their local share, and perhaps they've not yet figured it out. But it will be shared among the intake municipalities as well that will be part of that South Niagara Hospital. I think that it was already alluded to by Councillor Braderick that there are other communities. It's not just Niagara Falls. So Niagara Falls, based on their population, just as we, based on our population, will be assessed whatever their local share is. So it will work the same way. Now, they didn't decide to build a grandiose hospital. You know, you can't just arbitrarily decide what size you want. You know, that specifically, comes through the government as well in terms of what the needs are of the area.
Well, Madam Mayor, you mentioned that the tax burden there on your formula there was $44 million. That's what the taxpayers in Niagara Falls are on the hook for, $44 million, as compared to what Donna mentioned, which is $4.5 million for us. So that is 10%, 10 times more, and they got 10 times more hospitals. So if that is correct, then these numbers jive.
Yeah, well, what the rules say, I mean, the numbers bounce around all over the place, but what the rules say is the portion for which each hospital is responsible. So the hospital build is 10% of eligible construction costs of the new build. So whatever that turns out to be, you pay 10% of that, plus 100% of the costs associated with the purchase of new and replacement furniture, fixtures, equipment.
And ours was the same, 10%.
Including parking lots. That was the formula. That was the formula that existed at the size of our hospital.
So that's how you got the $44 million.
At the size of the St. Catherine's Hospital. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the premise that they're all worked on. But I'm not certain yet, and I don't know whether it's even come out at the region, how they've decided to do. It may not come to us, in terms of
It's just that I was kind of blindsided because I know all the work that's been done over many, many, many years. When I sat, Mary Dinga was beside me. She was on the committees for the hospitals. We're going back a long ways. And all this stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm watching TV, and 2 weeks ago, bang, $3.6 billion. Yeah. I'm going, what? And yet I know all the hard work that was done to get a $365 million. I'm thinking, what the heck has Niagara Falls got that all of a sudden they hit the jackpot? Was one of their casinos, if you win, you get a $3.6 billion hospital?
But somebody, Councillor, might think the same when we had our announcement of suddenly the hospital being built, if they didn't follow the story.
Yeah, but they knew how hard we worked to get to there.
We have no idea whether they've been working towards this or not. And the announcement that came out was just, okay, the hospital is finally shovels in the ground, they're going to get their hospital. We have no idea how much work went into that ahead of time.
TV never mentioned the fundraising drives or how many years they've been working towards this. There was nothing. It was all of a sudden just Ford and his and his cronies
Wow.
were there, and they had a shovel, and they got 3.6 billion, and Diodati's got a smile as wide as his face. I don't know how the heck he pulled it off.
Well, that's easy. I mean, I spent 15 minutes on an interview that had 2 seconds on TV. I mean, they put on what they want to put on TV.
No, I
So,
understand. Anyways,
don't judge things on that.
I just want to make sure that
Okay.
we're treated fairly.
Okay,
that's
well,
all.
I think we have been, and I think we can put that to rest, but we move on to
Okay, thank you.
15.9, council remarks. So is there anything further, other than a reminder, I appreciated that Councilor Woodavine gave a heads up on the fair. I'm sure that Councilor Chichok, you want to do the same? No, I'm starting with you. Do you want to, we're giving him a breath.
I
He needs
wanted-
to swallow.
Yeah. Well, Madam Mayor, between Councilor Witteveen and yourself, you've hit on all the high points in July and part of August. But I must say that I did notice Councilor Witteveen at several of the events that I was at as well. Most importantly is the family barbecue that was hosted by MP Dean Allison and MPP Sam Ostroff, which I know you were at as well, but we didn't connect at the same times. But there was about 225 people there that took advantage of a hamburger and a chance to talk with friends and people of our representatives at both Queen's Park and pardon me, Ottawa. And it was a nice day. It was a very nice day. But I did want to also mention the chamber event, but you've taken care of that. And the movies in the park, I had the great pleasure of helping with that and watching the Kiwanis provide the refreshments, but also the children enjoying both the movies inside where there were no bugs, and where it was dry, it was sure to be dry. And at one point, I think I saw Councillor Braderick and her granddaughter, who were enjoying rather full-heartedly the movies inside the arena. So I think it's been a great pleasure for a number of people in the township, as well as a good number of council, to be at these events. And I'm glad to hear that they've been going on. Councillor, I know that my colleague wants to talk about one of the events, so I'll leave that for him, that are yet to happen. I do want to remind people that while you and Councillor Witteveen talked about the fair, yes, the 8th, 9th, and 10th is, again, the fair for West Niagara. It is taken a ton of planning. They're still looking for volunteers to help with the car parking and various other activities that are happening at the fair. The 8th is a great day for young people, where a lot of the 4-H children will be doing their showing of their animals, their livestock, as well as their exhibits in the fair hall. There's still time for young people, young and old, to pick up a fair book, though, at either the libraries, the fair office, feed stores around the township, and there are lots of opportunities to submit your best of something, whether it's your best pumpkin, your best apron, your sewing, your knitting, your baking. There's still time for you to register and to go. And by the way, if you do register and become an exhibitor, there's a free pass for next year's fair, so there's something to look forward to. But great stuff. Tallest sunflower, shortest sunflower, greatest sunflower, they're all out there. And I really would suggest that all members of the community take a look at that fair book. It's on the line as well. This is a free plug for the fair, but it is one great place to gather, feel the friendship that is there within our community, and also the challenge of winning is there. So there's that. And Madam Mayor, I too was at the dinner at the dairy. I want to say that was another opportunity for the agricultural community to bring the townies to the country. And as you and Councillor Witteveen both have remarked, it was a great night to watch people get together again. I know we've been over COVID for a bit, but it's still amazing to see the number of new township residents that have been born since we last met their family. And it's good that we had people seeing the newest in robotics for farm machinery, and children certainly found out where white milk comes from, and that brown cows don't provide brown milk.
Seriously.
But it's always a great opportunity for everybody to come out. There was a couple thousand people went to that night, and it was a great event for everyone. So I'm glad to be part of going to those things and seeing the people that are enjoying it, and seeing so many functions, attractions, events are happening in the community that take our people to come together and enjoy each other's company and enjoy the work of others. So with that, I'll quiet, but I do hope to see you all the 8th, 9th, and 10th at the West Niagara Fair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rayner, did you have something?
Yes, Madam Mayor. For a number of years now, I've had a good... Sir.
Thank you.
For a number of years, I've had a good friend in the music industry, Ray Michaels, who for years worked for CKOC in Hamilton, which I've listened to since I was a kid. And he has moved to 92.9 The Grand, which is out of Caledonia. And he has a rock and roll show, and I've seen him present it to various places in Hamilton. And I had an opportunity to see if I could get him here. And he is booked for this Wednesday for 2 shows at the band shell.
Does that mean you're coming to Music in the Park?
I said I got him here, so you guys can enjoy him. I've already seen him. He's a great guy, and he will do a nice job, and you will enjoy him. So I thought it's an opportunity for some of the kids to listen to some rock and roll from the 50s and 60s and everything else. And he's got a good group of dancers and all the rest, but he's quite a character. He's a lot of fun. He's a great entertainer. And if any of you guys were involved in the Hagersville Find the Ace, Catch the Ace in Hagersville, Rock and Ray was the one at the end of the day at 8:10 in the evening would pull the winning ticket. And the gentleman won the $2 million. He came from Nanticoke. So anyways, Rock and Ray is quite a fun guy. He's got many, many years in the radio industry, and I call him quite often. We have some good chats. So he was quite pleased that West Lincoln was kind enough to have his group come down, and he's looking forward to doing his little show for everybody here.
So why don't you come and introduce him?
You're the mayor. You can do it.
I let staff do that, but I think since you know him so well, you should come.
You'll like him. He's a great guy. Thank you.
Arm twisting. Okay. Anything else from the other side of the horseshoe here? Nothing?
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, that to let the public know that the West Lincoln Skating Club has now opened up their fall registration. Oh, it means it's going to be winter. However, it's a great program, and just wanted to mention that that registration is available online now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell?
Just listen to the conversation between yourself, Councillor Rayner, and I do believe that he should come.
Thank you for the support of that, Councillor Bell.
He does seem to know him personally, and it would be great that he meets West Lincoln.
I think that's a really good suggestion. Okay.
I'll make you a deal. If you can get Neil Young, I will come. You don't have to get Crosby, Stills, Nash, because Crosby's passed away this year. But you could get Nash and Stills still, and I would come.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I think
I've been to the front door of Neil's place in Hawaii, and it's gorgeous, but I've never actually had a chance to meet him, so this would be a great opportunity.
There we go.
And it'd be a landmark thing for West Lincoln. It would really.
It would most certainly be, but let's not give false hope. Okay. One of the things that we do have some hope about that I neglected to follow up on with Councillor Witteveen, and that is that we do have a prospective daycare coming to Smithville United Church. They have been approved. They're in the process of beginning the renovations that are necessary to their downstairs area and are hoping to be open by the 1st of November. They probably will have about 40 spaces, including taking babies. We still do have a concern, of course, with the before school and after school programs, and haven't made much progress on that at this point, but at least we're looking at opening some daycare spaces sometime this year. Okay, so I think we'll leave our remarks at that. Are there any items of business, new business, that anyone wishes to read? Okay, and so seeing nothing there, we move to bylaws. And Councillor Rayner, you have those, sir.
I think there's a mistake, Madam Mayor, because Councillor Chichuk always had this lately.
It's your turn.
Reason,
speaking of turns, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Well, I guess it's about time. What do you think?
I think it is.
Okay, moved by myself that leave be granted to introduce bylaws number 2023-58, 2023-59, 2023-60, 2023-61, 2023-62, 2023-63, and 2023-64, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading and are hereby adopted. And that the mayor and clerk being hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto. Any rule of this council to the contrary is notwithstanding.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please. Counselor Bradrick. Thank you, Counselor. And the vote when you're ready.
Mine won't work.
Okay,
now. It
and
shut
the-
down.
Just a minute.
Just gonna have to hand it.
Oh, no,
It
because
shut
of the
down.
time?
Yeah,
Okay.
the time ran out. I have to reset the whole thing, so I just.
You're supporting bylaws, okay, so.
I'm sorry.
Anyone else have that difficulty with? Okay, so the rest of us are good. And that also carries. Good, okay. There are no confidential matters this evening, and so I will call this
Madam,
meeting.
before you adjourn it, I think we have to say welcome and thank you to our newest clerk.
Oh,
Go
yes.
ahead,
Pro
thank you.
temp.
I don't have flowers.
You got flowers?
And I don't have fudge, but I do have chocolate.
Oh, I take the chocolates.
To welcome our deputy clerk in the role of clerk tonight. Well
And to
done,
thank-
Justin, thank you.
Welcome, you did a great job.
Thank you, Counselor Chichok. Now I will
No,
declare.
no, we have
Well,
to say thank you again for our surprise visitor. in
Oh,
the-
she was no surprise. We knew she
No,
was
no.
coming.
Well, I didn't know.
You didn't know. We knew she was coming to offer support, and we're really
Good to have
pleased to
you
have
We
had
miss
that.
you, and
So
I'm glad you're back.
But we like you too.
she's back for the evening, and if we need her, but don't call her back. She
We'll
is.
think of reasons.
She is retired. Anyway, this meeting is adjourned at 10:30, whatever I can see.
8:30.
Nine.
8:30.
Oh, 8:39.